Immediately after the tragic deaths of Nadav and Avihu, the Chumash includes the prohibition of entering into the Ohel Moed while intoxicated, and then it has two more psukim: "L'avdil bein hakodesh uvein hachol, uvein hatamei uvein hatahor, u'la'orot b'nei Yisrael et kol hachukim asher diber Adonai aleihem biyad Moshe." Now, without getting too much into why these psukim are here, according to one position in Chazal, it's because Nadav and Avihu entered into the Mikdash while drunk and performed their Avoda then. I want to focus on the prohibition that Chazal derived from this, that one can't issue halakhic rulings while intoxicated. And it seems to me that there are three perspectives that emerge from the Rishonim, and each highlights a different perspective about how we have to think about Psak. So if one looks in the Gemara in Eruvin, Samach Dalet Samach Hey, the prohibition of issuing halakhic rulings while drunk is joined with a series of other laws about being intoxicated. One can't daven while intoxicated. One is not held liable for performing crimes while intoxicated. And the simple reason, as Rashi notes in Ketubot Daf Yud, is that one can't rule on halakhic issues when one's mind is not completely there. Halacha, and especially practical halacha, requires us to be present, to analyze carefully, to be serious, and that obviously can happen when one is drunk. However, if you look at the Sugya in Kritut, Daf Yud Bet Yud Dalet, the Gemara there derives from all the phrases in these psukim that there's a prohibition to issue halachic rulings from the first words, l'avdil bein hakodesh uvein hachol, to issue rulings about hekadeshot and charamin. Bein hatamei uvein hatahor prohibits issuing halachic rulings about purity and impurity. L'horot expands it to ritual law. And the Rambam, both in the Sefer HaMitzvot, in Lo Taseh Ayin Gimel, and even more clearly in Biat Mikdash, takes this very seriously. He seems to say that, as he says, we are Ziranu mikanez Mikdash o l'horot b'davar midinei Torah. We can't enter the Mikdash or rule on halachic rulings b'yotenu shikorim. And in Biat Mikdash, Aleph Gimel is even clearer. And he says, kishem, just like sha'asur l'kohen l'kanez Mikdash b'bnei shichrut, just like it's prohibited to enter the Mikdash when drunk, kach asur l'chol adam bein kohen bein Yisrael l'harok shu shatuis. You can't issue halachic ruling when drunk, and that kishem, I think, is very telling, because the Rambam is telling you it's not merely the fact that you have to be present intellectually, but he's saying that there's a form of avoda to be engaged in halachic analysis, especially practical halachic analysis, is in fact holy. You're entering into holy, not space, but maybe headspace. And that's, I think, a second perspective, right? The first perspective of Rashi is simply that halacha is something serious. The second is that it's not just that, but it's something holy, parallel to, similar to avoda in the Mikdash. And the third perspective, I think, emerges from the Ramah. The Ramah in Yordei Reish Mem Bet joins these halachot along with the halachot of having kavod for one's Rebbe, the prohibition of ruling halachically in front of one's Rebbe, the obligation for people who are not prepared to avoid issuing halachic rulings. And I think that the perspective that emerges from here is the following. The issue there in that siman is not necessarily that one is not ready to paskin. Perhaps someone is, but if his Rebbe is present, he can't. Because in addition to having to respect the Torah, he needs to respect the system. And his Rebbe, who's the person responsible for him entering into the Mesorah, he has to respect him. And therefore he can't paskin in his presence. And I think that the Ramah is hinting at a third perspective, that one must be present when one paskins, because in addition to the responsibility to the Torah and to oneself, one is responsible to the Shalshelet HaMesorah, to the tradition. And to not be serious is to not realize just how important this was and how much people contributed and how much effort people put in historically to make sure that the Torah was passed on properly. And therefore, I think this halacha of forbidding one from paskening drunk highlights three perspectives about Talmud Torah, especially practical halacha. One, which is obvious that it requires seriousness. The second is that halacha and practical halacha is something holy, and issuing halachic rulings is therefore a form of avoda. And the third is that we need to respect the system, we need to respect the effort that people have put in and show it the proper gravitas when we try to be part of that system as well. Shabbat Shalom.